Welcome to the Love Lab podcast, a safe place to get real about sex. Whether you're a man, woman, single or couple, this is the show for you because, well, sex matters. We are your hosts, Kevin Anthony and Céline Remy.
All right, welcome back to the Love Lab podcast, and this is episode 51, and it is titled 14 Ways to Add More Romance to Your Relationship.
I'm so excited about this episode. I'm like, romance. Yes, it's happening. And I really wanted to do this episode because when it comes to romance, there is a misconception that we think that, oh, this is something that women want. And yes, we do want it. But guess what? Guys, men want romance as well. And they might want it slightly differently. And that's part of what we are going to dive into today. We said 14 ways. 14 ways because 7 ways of how to romance him and 7 ways on how to romance her. So we're going to dive in deep from the man and woman perspective, give you our opinions, give you our what we do for each other. So it's going to get juicy and romantic, and hopefully you'll be magically inspired.
And as always, whenever we give you a list, it's not the full expansive list of every way that you could possibly romance somebody. They're just a couple of the top ones and ones that we thought were fun. And you know, it's also interesting too because there is a misconception about romance, and there's this stereotype that it's always the women who want romance, and the men are like kind of just a bunch of big dumb idiots who don't really care. and like many stereotypes, it's just not true. Now, granted, there are many stereotypes where there's some truth to it. And I think where this particular stereotype comes from is the fact that men simply want something different in their romance. And so that's something we're going to talk about in this episode is the differences, like what do we as men consider to be romantic versus what women consider to be romantic? And is there any intersection between the two?
Absolutely. And as we were getting ready for this episode, we were kind of like talking about it and realizing that romance comes up when people really don't experience it. You know, when it's happening in the relationship, nobody really questions it or thinks about it. It's just it, right? But when it disappears, suddenly it becomes this big, giant thing that's missing.
Yeah, well, so what's really funny about that is that in the beginning of a relationship, when you're in that new relationship energy and all the chemicals are flowing and all of that, you're doing romantic things all the time without even realizing you're doing romantic things.
That is so true. And then somehow, I don't know, you lose it. And that's some of the things we'll dive in and kind of like what happens. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is, like Kevin said, this is like a list of ideas. Our goal is to inspire you because ultimately what makes romance so good is when it's tailored and specific to the person. It's not because you read it in the magazine or you heard it on the Love Lab podcast. Yes, they most likely are going to work, but it's better if it's really targeted to the person that you are delivering it to.
Yeah, so know your partner, right?
Absolutely.
And we've done multiple episodes that talk about communication. So if communication is an issue, in other words, if you're sitting there thinking, I have no idea what my partner thinks is romantic, then you need to up your communication game.
And here's the thing, you don't have to figure it all out on your own. And it is something that I have a lot of the couples that come to see me do as one of their home play is to each create a list of romantic ideas, of ways that they would feel love. Because sometimes when we think of romance, you know, it's really about generating that loving feeling, right? That's why we want romance. And so I tell people, create a list for your partner so they don't need to try to figure it all out. And also pay attention to your partner. What kind of movies are they drawn to, especially if that's a woman? Like, what kind of books does she read? What kind of movies does she like? When does she go like, ooh, oh my God, it's so romantic when you hear stories of friends and stuff, and like take little notes, or when, I don't know, you guys are looking through a magazine or online or whatever, and she's like, oh, this is so pretty, and it's like a jewelry, but down into the list of things to remember, because we get so busy sometimes, like, oh, for sure I'm going to remember what they wanted and they liked, and we don't. So those lists help us because it's just like it becomes easy when we have a desire to do something for the other. Then all we need to do is read the list and pick the one that inspires us in the moment.
And guys, it's much easier now than it used to be. You have all the technology in the palm of your hand. Just make some notes. The notes application is your best friend.
And Google Doc works very well too. Do you remember at the beginning of our relationship, I made a romance document for you?
You did. You made a Google Doc and shared it with me with an extensive list of all the things that you thought were romantic. Honestly, it was quite helpful.
And the thing is, the reason it was a Google Doc is because it's easy to edit and we can both go in it. And then I told Kevin, and I said, hey, I'll edit stuff. I'll add things as I think things through. And it's funny, it just popped into my head because it's probably been years since either one of us went on that document. Mm-hmm. And I feel very much romanced and loved and desired. So the purpose has been achieved. Like you reached your goal of making me feel romanced and loved. So good job, Kevin.
Thank you.
So we were thinking about romance, and when it comes to the dynamic of men and women, there's definitely an author, a man that has contributed a lot to our understanding of the dynamic. And his name is John Gray. And you've probably heard of him, read maybe his book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And I mean, he's got dozens of books.
Yeah, that's probably his most well-known title.
Yeah.
But he's written tons of books on the subject.
And they're really cool. They give you a good understanding of what's going on. And then, you can step back and see how it applies into your life. Again, it's not like dogmatic, but he had some cool things to say about romance. And one of the things that he said was, the best way to increase romance and ecstasy in a relationship is trying new things. I don't mean in the bedroom, although that can certainly help. I mean new activities, planning dates to new places, enjoying new conversations or new experiences together as a couple. So, as you hear it, the newness. And I think that's one of the struggle that most people get stuck in when they've been together for a while. They stop bringing in new things.
Yeah, they get too much into a routine, especially if you have kids and you have busy jobs and you just get sort of in that routine where you're just kind of like spinning around in circles doing the same thing all the time. And so while breaking out of that routine and doing new things will certainly add romance to your relationship, it'll have a ton of other benefits as well. It's not good to get stuck in ruts. It's not good to get stuck in physical ruts. It's not good to get stuck in mental ruts.
Absolutely. And that's something that you and I share. We like to take new roads. We're driving and yes, there is a way to go from point A to point B. And then we're like, hey, how about like trying through this street or going that way? It's like, it could be really simple things that don't really require you to spend a ton of money or think about it for hours. It could be as simple as driving from your home to an event you're going and be like, hey, how about we try this street instead,
We totally did this just very recently. We were on our way to an event and the way the GPS was telling us to go was like tons of traffic. And I was like, well, it's probably been 10 years, but I think I know another way, and let's try it. And you're like, but the GPS is, I'm like, I don't care what the GPS says. I'm like, I know another way. I'm like, just trust me.
And that was fun. And so I want to finish one more thing about romance and what's happening in the brain according to John Gray, okay? He's saying that it's easier to bring back the newness in a relationship when you understand the brain chemicals associating with falling in love, okay? So one of the things that happens when we fall in love is the dopamine levels in your brain that skyrockets. Dopamine creates the feelings of pleasure. Another thing that happens is serotonin level rises in the brain. The serotonin creates a feeling of optimism and helps you think positive. So remember, we always like to say that it's kind of like a hormonal shower when people are what they call in love at the beginning, because it's all like these things happening within the body, and And sometimes that's what people get addicted to. But once you understand that it's those things that are being released, those hormones, those neurotransmitter, and that dopamine, serotonin, all of that is really essential, then you need to seek ways that will reactivate the release of these hormones in your body.
And there certainly are plenty of them.
Absolutely. So ultimately, romance will spice up a sex life, and it doesn't have to be complicated. So I'm very curious. I want to jump into how to romance a guy and what men think is romantic. Kevin, you're going to be on the spotlight.
This was actually kind of fun, sort of brainstorming a list of what men think is romantic and what women think is romantic, because you started helping me brainstorm the men's list. And what I was noticing was that some of your suggestions for what, a man would think is romantic were actually things that women think are romantic. And then I just threw out like a couple of things, and then I was like, that's pretty much it right there. And you were like, but that can't be it, And the reality is that as guys, we're pretty simple. We don't actually require that much, and we're pretty easy to figure out. So let's jump into some of the things on the list here, because we do have 7 ways to romance a man. So the first one was one of the first ones that you talked about, which was write him a love note. And yes, as a guy, I do find that romantic, but honestly, I would not have thought of that and put it on the list.
It's so funny because when I leave you little notes in your lunchbox or on your pillow or something, like you actually keep them and you seem really happy. So I figured for sure I was going to score really high with that idea.
Well, you do score high with that idea when you actually do it. It's just not something I would have thought of. So, there's like the main things that, a guy would definitely think of if you asked him what's romantic. And then there's a lot of other things that you might come up with that we still love and appreciate. We just wouldn't have necessarily thought of. Okay. So that's one of them. So when you leave me little notes, when you pack me a lunch, if I have a meeting or something, I do very much appreciate that. It's very cute. Next one is compliment him. So this one was really high on my list of things that I think are romantic. And, by romantic, what are we really talking about? We're talking about things that make us love and appreciate the other person, make us love and appreciate the relationship that we're in, that make us want to do things special for the other person and really nurture that connection, that bond between you. And complimenting us as a man is one of those things that will really do it. In fact, when teaching women what not to do, we have the opposite on the list, right? Which is the criticizing.
Absolutely.
And so, when you do the criticizing thing as a woman, you're absolutely killing romance. I mean, you're just hacking it to pieces when you do the criticizing thing. But when you do the complimenting thing, it's amazing. Men are not perfect and women are not perfect. And, we have our places where we could do better, like we all do. But a lot of the time, most men are genuinely trying hard. Even if they're completely fucking it up, they're genuinely trying. And when they get criticism all the time, it just destroys the romance. But if you compliment us, it's like the skies opened up and light beams from God are shining down upon us. It's like, oh my God, she notices, she cares. Like that little thing that I did when I picked the thing up or I fixed the whatever, or she actually noticed and cares. That to me, at least anyway, as a guy, that's hugely romantic.
So I have a question because we have 2 different things here. We have compliment him as one way, and then we have appreciate him as another way. And what I'm really curious is what is really the difference from your perspective, because we put them as 2 different things, and at the same time, they kind of could be bundled together, and I can see how they're not.
There's a little bit of overlap there. So a compliment can be an appreciation, but an appreciation can be more than just a compliment. Right? So I love compliments like, oh, I really like how you did that, that turned out really well, how you fixed that thing or whatever it is.
Oh, thanks for making breakfast. It was so tasty.
Yeah, or compliments like, "Oh wow, the breakfast that you made for us was really amazing." So those are great, and those are our appreciations too. But appreciations can be more about just appreciating who the person is. It doesn't have to be about anything specific. And I think that's maybe one of the key differences. Compliments tend to be a little bit more specific, and appreciations maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit higher, like bigger picture. It could just be, I really appreciate the way you show up for me. That whenever I need you, you're here, and I don't even have to ask.
So also the difference kind of like in the appreciation, you can share who the person is makes you feel so good and like how it's making your life better. While in the compliment, it's the action, it's the doing that you focus on, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
I mean, these are not hard definitions that you can't deviate from, but yeah. So, you can compliment somebody when they've done something that you like. Or you can even compliment them on their appearance or whatever it is. And you can also appreciate the person for who they are, appreciate them for the way they show up.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Get to our next one.
All
Evan.
right, so next on the list, doing nice things for us. So I personally find this to be extremely romantic, which is when you do little things like pack me a lunch. There are many times when I know that you're very busy, and I know that you don't really have the time to do that. And I'll even tell you, don't worry about it. I'll figure it out. Like, don't stress yourself out. There's plenty of food out there in the world. I'll take care of it. And you're like, no, like I want to do this for you. And then you like put little desserts in there and like put a little note in there and stuff. And I personally find that extremely romantic. And it's nothing to do with the food. It's just the fact that you care. You care enough to go out of your way to do it.
Or it could be things as simple as getting you your towel when you come out of the shower and wrapping you in your towel, or prepping something for you. So, yeah, you were like, okay, doing nice things.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys to it is, okay, let's say, I mean, this would still be nice, but let's say as a guy, I have all these tasks that I need to do. And, you might offload a little bit of my workload by helping me with a task. That helps. But I find when it comes to being romantic, it's the little things that you don't have to do, and you just do for the sake of doing them. Like putting the note in there or getting the towel. Like, I mean, I'm perfectly capable of picking up my own towel when I get out. Like, it doesn't save me anything. It doesn't really help me in any way, but it's really sweet and romantic.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, so we had write him a love note, compliment him, appreciate him, do nice things. Another one is acknowledging the hard work he does. So I guess, you're seeing a theme here with complimenting and appreciating and acknowledging. Those things really go a long way for us as men. Again, it's like most men are really doing their best, and we're trying hard, and for the most part, we do a lot. There's a lot of little things that we're doing as well. And I know the women are going, yeah, well, so are we. Yeah, you are. Absolutely, you are. And so are we. Whether we're taking out the trash or washing the cars or fixing them when they're broken or fixing whatever's broken in the house all the time, because there's always something.
Or doing like the last minute like grocery run for like something that was forgotten.
Yeah, stopping on your way home from a meeting to get whatever's needed, or there's a million things that we are doing, or at least should be doing, that it's nice to be acknowledged for. So number 6 on our list. Ooh, sexy outfit or nice dress. Yeah, I would say, I mean, this borders on sexually stimulating, which is not necessarily the same thing as romantic, but either dressing nicely or doing your hair or making yourself, look beautiful and kept is to us a sign that you care about how you look and how we perceive you. And I find that romantic. You can say, putting on sexy lingerie, but it doesn't even have to be that. It's just putting on a nice dress. And think about what that does in your relationship. Think about if every day all you do is get up in the morning, throw your hair in a bun, put on your sweats and do your thing. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. And there are days where that is absolutely perfectly acceptable. But if that's your every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you might be missing something.
And if the only time you get dressed is when you go see other people, you're also like sharing a message here of like, hey, I'm dressing up for people that I don't care about, and then I don't do anything for those that I care.
Oh yeah, that was a great meme that we had seen floating around with a woman who was like basically a mess, and it said, "This is how I show up for the person I love." And then she's all done up with fancy dress and hair and makeup and all that, and this is how I show up for complete and total strangers.
Yeah.
Something's a little backwards there, isn't it?
Absolutely. So what's our number 7 here, Kevin?
Number 7 is give us a massage. Yeah, obviously this one was one that I put on the list. But I think that what should be obvious at this point in the list, and I admit this is mostly just my point of view, things that I think are romantic, but I think what becomes obvious is that they really are little things. They don't need to be grand gestures in any way. If we come home and it's been a long, hard work day, and you give us a 5-minute shoulder massage, to me, that's romantic. That's connection. We're touching each other and we're just connecting in that way. Those are the things that do it for me, at least, anyway. It doesn't have to be any grand gesture. You don't have to buy me anything, or just, appreciate me, compliment me, acknowledge me, maybe give me a little massage. Those things will absolutely make me want you.
Ooh, how good. So there you have it. 7 ways to romance your husband, partner, or him, basically. So let's dive into the women now. So one thing that I wanted to really share before we got into the different ways is what women think is romantic, and it's kind of similar to what Kevin just said. It's more about your actions than it is really just about what you say. So what do you do? And it doesn't always have to be those grand gestures. As a matter of fact, it's about meaningful, frequent acts of love. So it helps if you know your partner's love language, because again, it's going to be different how the love is being received. So both ways, you need to know his love language, you need to know her love language, and you need to make a commitment to speak your partner's love language every single day so that they feel loved. And ultimately, why does she want romance from you? She wants romance from you because she wants to feel wanted and desired by you. She also needs to feel safe and secure with you. So you're playing with these concepts of desires and passion and wants and safety and security. And that's all about what we've been talking in several episodes of the polarity of like playing with these energies. So remember that when you are finding ways to romance her. So let's look at different things here. Number 1. Speak her love language. And I had to put it there because I think a lot of guys, they know what to do, but they just don't do it. And then, like, if she told you that what she loves is to be told she's beautiful or is to get little gifts, like, do those things.
Absolutely. Do those things. And I think a lot of guys just don't realize what it means to speak somebody's love language. And I think what's so great about the love languages is that it frames it in a way that as men we can understand it. In other words, if a woman says that she likes a particular thing, we're like, okay, cool, we'll kind of file that away at some point. It's different than saying this is their love language. This is the way they feel loved from you. Because then all of a sudden we go, oh, that means we need to do it all the time because that's the way she gets the signal that we love her and that we care.
Absolutely. Say I love you And I know you say, she knows, I've told her 1,000 times. I don't care how many times you've said it. I don't care that she knows it. She wants to hear it every day.
And I don't care how many times we've said it on this show. It needs repeating, which is, it doesn't matter if she knows it. God, how many times have we heard guys say this? Well, she knows I love her. I don't give a fuck. You could have just told her 5 minutes ago. Tell her again.
And be creative. I mean, the only way is to say, love you, love you. You know, like it's that short end of the I love you, but like, I don't know, get a towel and make a heart on the floor. Or like write something on the shower mirror or in the bathroom or on the shower glass panel so that when it gets steamy, there's a heart or an I love you. Like, be creative.
Okay, those are all great ideas. And I know half the guys here are listening and going, shit, I'll never remember that. Like, this sounds hard now. This sounds like work. So if you can remember those things, great. And rather than just saying love you on the way out the door, just say it like you mean it. That's all you really have to do. If you can do those other things, great. Otherwise, just say, like, look her in the eye and say it with some feeling and emotion.
Yeah.
That's all you really have to do.
Okay, number 3, write a little note. You know, whether it's how she inspires you to be a better man, whether how beautiful she is, whether about your undying love, whether it's a beautiful poem that you just read. You don't even need to come up with some cool stuff. Get some good lyrics from a song and give her the song and say, this made me think of you. You know, like those are exactly us. So the song could have been made for us or whatever. Like take somebody else's great work and say that it's just what you wish you could have said to her.
Yeah. It works well. It'll make her instantly wet.
Okay, so number 4, gift her flowers or something beautiful that reminds you of her. I know the flowers sound cliche, but they really work.
Yeah, they do. So here's the tip that I learned within the last year or so is you go find where your like local discount bulk, you know, like
wholesale
grower
flowers.
is, like wholesale flower place is. Because you can get them way cheaper than anywhere else, and they're usually fresher too, you know?
And they last longer, and they're bigger, like much more flowers, so it looks like you got like so much.
Yeah. And just kind of put that in your loop of your travels, you know, once every 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, put a little alarm, you know, and then it comes up and it's like flower day, so just think of it. You know, it's a recurring alarm every month or every 2 weeks, whatever you want to commit to.
Try to mix it up, though, so she doesn't figure out what the pattern is. So she doesn't know every third Thursday you bring flowers. That would still be better than no flowers.
Yes.
But, you know, try to mix it up a little.
Okay, number 5, dance with her. Slow dance in the kitchen. Fast dance in the bedroom. Whatever. Dance with her. Why do you think we love to watch those movies where there's like balls and like these big like elaborate things people wear and they go around sliding around the floor and then he takes her and like gets this move where she just arches her back and he brings them back up and it's like it's awesome. It's like, yes.
All right, guys, don't worry. You do not have to live up to any movie scenes. Just give her a few steps in the kitchen. It doesn't matter how bad you are. Just try not to step on her feet too much, and she'll love it so much that's all it takes.
And just lead her. You know, truth be told, Kevin's not really a dancer. Actually, he doesn't like it, but he dances with me nearly every day. And we found ways to dance in a way that works. And like he said, like he pulled out a few moves. I bet he studied them. And I know he's got them and they rock.
Oh, why, thank you. Yeah, dancing's never been my thing. It's never been something that I've been particularly interested in, which people kind of laugh at because they're like, you're a musician. I'm like, yeah, I want to play. I want to make the rhythm. Somebody else can move to it, you know?
The funny part is he's also, he does martial arts, right? And a lot of the moves that he shows me, and I go like, you pulled a dance move, and you're like, you're so graceful, and you don't even want to dance? And I'm like, this is like being a tall guy and not playing basketball.
Yeah, well, you know, from my very practical male point of view, I go, yeah, but there's a point to me doing it when I do it in martial arts. There's like a use for it, you know?
Yes, but now you have a use for dancing because it brings stars into my eyes, and then
Well,
I just
yes.
love you even more.
In that case, I do it.
All right. Number 6, sing her a song. And if you really don't know how to sing, play her a song. Like the thought, you remember those times? I'm sure our listeners are old enough of like when you made mixtapes for each other, you know?
Some of our listeners understand that. The others are like, what's a tape? I just make a playlist.
Okay, playlist, a Spotify playlist, whatever that is, you know, but make something with songs, whether you sing it, whether you create a compilation of your favorite love songs. It's just like anytime you do an action that creates emotion, it brings the romance. And music and movement like this create those emotions.
Yeah, and as you pointed out before, one of the great things about playing a song that somebody else has already written, they've already done the hard part. They've already created the romance. You just have to reuse it.
Milk it. And then number 7, take her out. Take her out, plan little surprises. And you know, something that's cool too is there's something that happens when there's anticipation that's being built up. And I know for me, it works really well. If I know that there's like, Kevin tells me, okay, I want you to be ready at 7 on Thursday and put on a nice dress and I'm going to take you somewhere. Like the whole excitement and build up is in this anticipation of what's going to happen. And I think I get even more from that than I do from the actual event. And so think about that. You can really make it last a long time. Because you could be sharing something that's a week ahead, and then you can start nurturing this idea and talking about it a little bit. And then when that happens, she's already extremely ready for that because she's been prepping herself in her mind, rehearsing lots of scenarios and stuff, and it works out really well. And when you take her out and you take the lead and you're in charge, like she can relax. So remember those feeling safe and secure with you? That's really what happens. She can just be like, wow, he's got me.
Absolutely.
And it's powerful. I wanted to share one more thing as we're coming close to the end here about why you want to do romance. And yes, it's for the other, but it's also for yourself. And there's a teacher of ethical behavior in England that wrote in 1930, and his name is Eliyahu Dessler. No clue if I pronounced it properly, but listen to what he said. Love flows in the direction of giving. Love and giving come together. What that means is the one who gives gets to love. So when you give, it fosters the love you feel for your partner. And so if you give her attention and little gifts, it continues to create those feelings. And if you allow her to give to you, because some guys are like, well, I don't need those things. I don't need to be romanced. I don't need to have those action. But if you don't allow her to give to you, whether it's like creating a beautiful meal for you or massaging you or whatever that is, she doesn't have the opportunity through the giving to cultivate her love for you.
Well, I don't know who Dessler is, but I'm going to quote somebody that I do know and appreciate. And it's, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. That's the Beatles.
Oh, I had no clue. He's my musician again. So it's really, really important to remember to be givers at all times in your relationship, especially as you've been together for a long time. And again, if you're not sure what she wants and what he wants, take the time, each of you, to write 10 things down on the list, start to document and share it with each other, and then take action. And do those romantic actions.
Yeah, I love the idea of the list because I know a lot of guys find this romance thing kind of hard. And I know a lot of women just like think the guys are mind readers and they automatically know what's romantic. We probably don't. Don't assume that we do. And if you want more romance, simply have a conversation, sit down, write your lists, and then make it a point to do something from the list every now and again.
Absolutely. And then same, like we said, some with the guys. You may not think like some of the ideas like, oh, now that I know, oh, he likes the massages or he likes that, it's so much easier to just give him exactly what he wants.
Yeah. We like that. You'll never be disappointed if you give them exactly what they want. And if you already have the cheat sheet, it's pretty easy.
So do it!
All right, everybody. We hope that was helpful. That's all the time we have on this episode, and we will see you next week. We hope you liked this episode of the Love Lab podcast. If you enjoyed this show, leave a comment and share it with your friends.
And if you want more, we have an entire digital library with the best sex tips and relationship advice at CelineRemy.com. That's CelineRemy.com. So join us in the Sex Vault to continue this adventure.
Thanks for listening.
And remember, you're amazing.